Hello and welcome to the 1904 Club from the Hull Daily Mail. It's myself, Burnsy and Prutts with you today. And I feel like, given what happened in the second city on Saturday, there might be one or two talking points for us to get through before the show is out. So we'll start with you, Burnsy. How are you?
I'm good. I enjoyed it. There's loads to talk about. I thought it was a big statement win on Saturday to the rest of the division, along the lines of we're here and we're going to be part of this season. So we're going to surprise a few of you. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was brilliant entertainment. As I tweeted on Saturday night, it only needed a dog and a streaker on the pitch, and it was the full entertainment package. It was great, brilliant, and well done them.
Absolutely, and we'll come on to that in just a second because it was fabulous entertainment and fair credit. Prutts, are we well, my old chum?
Yeah, good. Yeah, echoing what Burnsy said, and obviously we've had a little gossip before this, but yeah, the goals that you see if you were at the game only tell a part of the story, but some cracking goals there. My word, Hull City, prime Brazil in full flight going forward.
Absolutely. So just for those that don't know, to clarify, so City won 3-2 at Birmingham. That is only part of the story. It's their first away win of the season. It's the first time, I think, in 48 games they've won back-to-back games, dating back to early October, that infamous week where they won at Stoke, beat Cardiff, and then won away at QPR and didn't win again until Christmas. And it's the first time that Birmingham have lost at home in the league since April 2024, a run that stood at 29 games before City beat them in the 30th game. So a few big kind of moments away just from the fact that City won a game away from home, for instance. But there was a lot of talking points. Let's start with the mass brawl, because it's important to get both sides of this. So there was a brawl before half-time, Burnsy, after a couple of rugged challenges. In that, there was some alleged sweariness and some alleged unkindness. It was alleged by Jurkovic, when I spoke to him after the game, that a member of the Blues security staff had told him to F off back to Croatia. He was born in Bosnia. So that's what he alleged. Birmingham were quick after the game to say that they'd carried out a thorough investigation within an hour of the game finishing, and that they found that wasn't the case. Jurkovic was keen to not take it any further. So as it stands, and I think the club, City, are keen to try and let it just, move on from it. There will obviously be there'll be a charge almost certainly from the FA for failure to control players and all that sort of stuff. But in terms of, I think, what was allegedly said to the manager from the security staff, I think the Hull City want that just to move away now. So, Burnsy, you were there. Obviously, you heard what the gaffer said post-match. He also said that Chris Davies told him to F off. That's more kind of like brawl speak, I suppose, the sort of stuff you would get on a touchline. Prutts will know more about that than I would. But, Burnsy, you were there. Kind of what was your kind of feeling about what happened just before half-time?
I'll hold my hands up because I said it on the commentary on Tigers Plus. I loved it. It was proper old school football. It was, they all went bonkers, and I'm thinking, hold on, lads, game of football here. You've gone nuts. For me, it was started by Chris Davies, the Birmingham manager. He was the one going nuts at Kyle Joseph's foul, except it wasn't a foul. His tackle on Roberts, it wasn't a foul. The referee didn't give it. And then Stansfield came in for a bit of afters on Joseph, and they all kicked off. Everybody got involved. And, looking at Chris Davies and everybody else in there, there was always going to be swearing and people being told to F off, because it was not, bally hell, chaps, this is not on. What sort of tackle was that on my man? It wasn't going to be that, and it just escalated. One of the strange things I found, there's two players rolling around in agony on the floor. Nobody pays a bit of notice to them. Player welfare, everybody's getting involved, pushing, shoving, doing whatever. And the post-match stuff is unfortunate, but I think the club are just right. Well, you said what's been said, move on. Let the EFL deal with it. They'll both get a club fine for failing to control the players. But it might be terribly old-fashioned of me, and in this modern world, maybe you shouldn't say. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic entertainment. There was something very old-fashioned and primeval football about it, and yeah, I, yeah, it is what it is. But just move on. Don't let it detract, because I think it actually added to the game. But don't let the post-match stuff. And he was right to say it, by the way. Don't let the post-match stuff detract from what was an entertaining afternoon.
Prutts, thoughts on that? You've obviously you've been on the pitch, you've been on the sidelines as a player, as a pundit, as somebody on the bench as well at times. Kind of, you'd have seen that sort of stuff before. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I think anything that goes anywhere near discriminatory language around ethnicity and that type of thing needs investigating. I understood the air of cynicism with regards to what you said about having a thorough investigation. 20 minutes after the whistle had been blown, you do kind of, does make you kind of think that type of terminology or the description of that. So yeah, if there is an element of that, there'll never be a place for that in football. It'll never be justified as a thing to say. I mean, as a kind of ex-pro that doesn't get involved in hopefully melee such as that for a very long time, then you can see how the language being used is I won't try and sound too unsavoury, etc. But it's robust language that's used on a football pitch, and a manager telling someone else from another staff where to go, half of the course. Players do it all the time. I understand that there's a need and a necessity for football to look a certain way because of the this is with my EFL / kind of pundit head on, that you are setting an example to people that are watching, but it's a game played by 22 hyped up fellas on a pitch with the respective staff on either side, and I don't know, 25 to 30,000 Blues fans in a place that's an absolute bear pit. So that's why tensions are high. I think the original challenge by Joseph was robust. I think he won the ball. I mean, you could possibly nudge it into reckless territory. That's where that would then become a free kick, because you're not necessarily thinking about what happens after the impact you'd be winning the football, because he cleans Patrick Roberts out. 10 years ago, it's seen as a robust challenge and everyone gets on with it. The reaction comes from, first and foremost, Birmingham thinking it's a foul, not getting the foul, then Hull City not kicking the ball out. As we know, they don't have to. They don't, unless it's a head injury when the referee has to stop it, it's at the discretion of the team that's in possession of the football. They don't have to kick it out. So then that only then stokes a situation where you get two players steaming back into Joseph, then it all kicks off, and then you see what happens on the touchline. If you've got two managers there that are telling each other where to go, that's, again, they might get a slap on the wrist for that because they're deemed to be the ones that set the standard, and they're the ones in charge, if you like. But again, here at the moment, I can totally see where that comes from. And it all seemingly blew up in a very, very short space of time in the middle of what was a thrilling game of football, going back to what Burnsy was saying. A hell of a lot to like about it. And I'll be intrigued to see how that pans out. I think you're absolutely right. There will be a charge for failure to control your players, because I think everybody was involved. I'd have to have a look again to see where the two goalkeepers were, but to me it looked like everybody on the pitch was involved, and everyone on the dugout was involved, which shows an old school fight and a passion. Again, maybe apologies if people listen to me and kind of seeing the underlying take on it, which is, works for several different organisations that I know people very well in, and I understand how hard they're working to try and make sure that the game looks a certain way. But having been in that situation on the pitch, it's part of what the combustible nature of a championship game is. So, yeah, I think slaps on the wrist all round. If there is anywhere near any truth in the question, the finger pointed or the stick that someone may have beaten Hull City's head coach with regards to where he's from geographically, then that is very, very, very serious indeed, and needs more than one team looking at it. It needs looking at by the authorities.
Presumably the EFL will look at it.
They've got to, yeah.
My question, and you made me think about it, Prutts, but my question would be, Because there were bouncers and stewards all involved in it. And if that's the case, then the steward should not be making the situation worse. The steward's there to make the situation better and calm everybody down. So the EFL will look at it, and rightly so.
Yeah. Go on, Benzi. I'm putting in there, mate. Go on.
No, you're all right. Put in.
No, because it's obviously both clubs. Because what people talk about the EFL being in charge, it's all the clubs are members of the EFL. So the EFL only exists with the members obviously involved. So they've got to look at the actions of two of their members, which is Birmingham City and Hull City, work out if anything needs to be worked out, what's going on. As you say, with employees of Birmingham City, by definition of them being there as stewards or security, they need to be in a position where they can take the sting out of a situation such as that. Now, and again, this is me not casting aspersions on people that work at these football clubs or any football clubs or are very much part of the fabric and the furniture. More often than not, these people will be super loyal to that club. When I go work back at Forest and Leeds, all those people are the same people. The club will change, the players will change, the manager most certainly will change. Everyone that works in and around those places, more often than not, are there for years and years and years and years. So there is an innate loyalty to Chris Davies, to their players, to they might have just seen who they believe to be one of their players booted up in the air in Patrick Roberts. So there is that step forward into we need to sort this out. And the aggressors, Hull City. I mean, when's that finger been pointed at the aggressors, Hull City? And I mean that tongue in cheek, but it shows a little bit of a turning of a corner with the fabric of the team.
Yeah.
They're there to defend what they believe to be an injustice, which they believe to be a foul on Patrick, and then the ensuing melee that comes off the back of that. The tough thing about it is, having watched it, and there'll be several camera angles that they'll be able to look through the footage. It becomes identifying. Then it becomes identifying a person with identifying what that person's exactly said. Now, in anything such as this, there's that opinion, there's the opposite opinion, and possibly somewhere in the middle, there's exactly what happened. However, in the heat of the moment, you're relying on two sides of the equation being absolutely crystal clear about what happened. Now, from an EFL point of view, from an FA point of view, I don't know how you can drill down into that. If it's that busy and that spiteful right in the middle, then you've got to try and work out what someone said. Then, I mean, are you down the road of a lip reader? Can someone lip read off footage from 30 yards away? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but when they're trying to dial down into what has been said, it becomes, as you say, allegedly, and it's a very key word, that, because you're then moving into areas of defamation and libel. You've got to make sure that if you are going to go down a route and pursue it, as Hull City might, that their take on it's got to be pretty ironclad. And if Birmingham City are going to defend it, their take on it's got to be pretty ironclad as well. So, yeah, anything that's involved with that particular part of it. And it's something that we're talking about it here as three lads from England that I presume no one's ever called you something along the lines of an English so-and-so. You know what I mean? There's no discrimination here being felt by the three people on here, unless I'm forgive me if I'm talking out of turn, lads, but that's never been used in the heat of the battle as a thing to kind of denigrate someone. This has been said, allegedly, if it has been said, with racial undertones, hasn't it? That's so if that's what Sergei has alleged and feels very strongly about, you've got to take his feelings at face value and extremely strongly and seriously, and work your way through that.
Go on, Ben.
Just following on from that point, aren't his feelings bad now that that's it? I've said what I've said. That's what went on. I don't want to make any more of it. Let's move on and let's concentrate on the football. Is that
they are
effectively what he said now, Bas? Yeah.
It's effectively what the conversation certainly in the media room at St Andrews on Saturday night was, from Birmingham's angle. Well, the security guys, they wouldn't even know whether he's from Bosnia or from Croatia. So why would they wouldn't know that he's from Croatia, or he's not from Croatia? He was born in Bosnia as he was. And my angle was like, well, okay, fine, but why would Jurkovic lie? So essentially what we're saying is Jurkovic made it up, which I find, and this is the problem, isn't it? So it's all alleged, But
Likely.
Jakirovic was very clear on what he heard and what was said to him. And if you look at the TV footage, he has got security people in his face. And he said to me, "Well, I never left my technical area. If you leave your technical area, it's an instant yellow card." And he said, "I got booked." So because he got booked for in that situation, he's now that's his third. And I should point out, not all for his own indiscretions. He got one early in the season for was it the Oxford
one of his
game?
staff? Yeah, one of his staff threw the ball.
Yeah. So he's now suspended from the touchline tomorrow night against Leicester. He'll be watching probably from where we are in the press box. But I just don't, and I respect what Birmingham say. They're defending their own people, but I just, from a City point of view, I just don't see why City have won the game. I don't see why Jakirovic, and he knows he's not stupid. He's a very, very bright, intelligent fella. He would know the impact of him saying that in the media would have. We're not all just going to go, "Oh, okay," and move on from it.
But the thing because even talking about it here, and I think you can tell if you're listening in that we've all got to be very careful about the wording of it completely, because of how out of context or misconstrued it could be. Alleged is the word that overhangs this whole thing, Baz, and you're absolutely right. And I've spoken to Sergei once. I've spoken to Chris Davis a few times. I found both men to be very genial, nice to chat to, charming, bright. And I'm not saying this any condescension. And from what I've seen, both good at the jobs. Yes, Sergei's is a smaller sample size than what Chris has done. But yeah, there's so much to respect about the both of them. Both passionate men working in a passionate industry. So when it comes to this, I totally see what you're saying and how tough it is. And again, listening in and addressing the listeners directly. I mean, forgive us for talking about this when it was a thrilling attacking performance from a whole City side that was absolutely swaggering around St Andrews at times, wasn't it? In a place where no one's won for such a long time. But I'm absolutely with you. And looking at it from a journalistic point of view, Birmingham City as an entity, yes, I said it's a place which is very intimidating to go to. When you go to that place at St Andrews, when it's full, it really is a test of your nerve and your mettle as a footballer. But as from what I've seen, tremendous work on and off the pitch with how they approach everything to do with Birmingham as an entity. Birmingham, one of the most multiculturally diverse cities you're ever going to walk in our very, very multicultural country, which is what makes it so great. Yes. Why would they entertain an employee that would say that? They wouldn't. Quite simply, they wouldn't. On the flip side, why would the Hull City head coach say that? So there is two sides of what this debate is. There's two sets of, without kind of sounding like Meghan Markle, there's two sets of truth here, which maybe overlap somewhere in the middle for what potentially you get towards the definition of what actually happened. It just looks so messy and ugly, and it doesn't paint anyone really in the best of lights, does it? Because there's an allegation that can't be necessarily, not necessarily substantiated. But then on the flip side of it is you look at what Sergei has said and then kind of wants to move on from it. That maybe, again, I'm not trying to get offended on his behalf at all. But when you hear that, what he says, that terminology was used, you kind of think, oh, maybe it's, and I'm waffling here now, maybe it's a reference to his background. When we in the start of the podcast, Baz, when you're describing where Sergei's come from, given the age that he is, given the turmoil of that part of Europe for a very, very long period of time, without us really kind of knowing what it was like on the ground, wherever he thinks he's from or wants to be from or declares himself to be to have an allegiance to, that's his take on it. He'd have been and seen, and his families and the people that would have been through things that we can't even comprehend. So he can, his background geographically is absolutely his to completely own. And maybe what he's alleging is something that he's experienced that many times that you do go, he said that, all right, you don't blame me, fine, move on. Maybe that's where he does find himself at this stage in life.
Yeah. Just like Burnsy, before I come to you quickly, it is worth, in the interest of balance here, it was put to Chris Davis at post-match that have Birmingham got a problem with their behaviour, because they were fined early this month. They were given a £100,000 fine by the FA because against Ipswich they failed on I think that was their first game of the season. They failed to control their players, and that was the fifth occasion in 12 months. So the fine that fine obviously went up to 100k, and it was put to him: "Have you got a bit of a problem now that this is another occasion where your bench and your players have all?" And he flipped it and went, "Actually, we're passionate. We stick together." And the same you'd say for City. Well, I loved the spirit. I loved the attitude that it was. Everybody was together, and I've said this before. I absolutely love the manager. I think I love his attitude. He's a warrior. He's a fighter, and his team is starting to play in the image of he said to me a few weeks ago, we're a bit too soft, we're a bit too nice in our challenges, and we're a bit too we sort of okay, players take the ball off us, we sort of pat them on the shoulder. We need to be tougher, we need to be stronger and more physical, and I think we've seen that against Sheffield United, and I think we definitely saw that at St Andrews on Saturday, that Joseph got taken out and everybody came to his defence, and I think that's a precious commodity, and that shows that dressing room is right together, and that's a really important thing.
Just to sort of sum it up and move on, East Hull Tiger says to the 1904 Club on Twitter, there needs to be an EFL investigation into the touchline melee. Why are Birmingham officials and security in the City technical area? Why are the security only facing towards and concerned with City management? Seems a bit one-sided.
But there's a lot of security.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, there was. I think I referred to them as posh bouncers, some of them. It was, they've thrown me out of nightclubs before that lot. But anyway, there was just one final point from me on it. I was amazed Davis didn't get booked and Jokinovic did get booked, because for me,
Ludicrous.
Davis kicked it off with his reaction to the initial challenge. But anyway,
I think as well, just going off there, Burnsy, before we move on, and again, sorry to put that, given what we've seen over the course of the piece and the way that the officials dealt with that, there's certainly a lot in that for them to look at and learn from, with regard, because if you, in that instance, given the behaviour of both benches, the fact that one manager was booked just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. And we'll no doubt we'll come to the referee's performance, because Birmingham will feel a sense of injustice about not getting a penalty in the first half, about Crooks not being sent off for a second yellow, and Egan gets the second yellow. But I just wanted to throw in a word that both of you sort of touched on. The word I wrote down today ahead of the show was robustness. There's a robustness about City that we've not seen before. And that's good. It's very admirable. That, and they're playing some lovely football. You come back to Prutts describing the goals earlier. I mean, the Slater diving header was a work of art.
Brilliant.
The cutback cross from Coyle, the diving header, beautiful. Sign it, put it in a little Hull City gallery.
What I would say is about the game. There are obviously huge talking points around the game as well, but on the game, City didn't think play particularly well, particularly in the first half. They were second best. They had zero control of the game at all. But what this City team have got in their locker now is the ability, when they're not at their best and when they're under the cosh, is they can go and score a goal. And out of nothing, they went and scored a goal. And what was even more impressive for me was, given what happened in that melee, and it went on. It felt like it went on for quite a while. There was obviously cards being handed out like confetti, although not to the Birmingham manager. But then, the Birmingham fans were then raucous, were angry. City went and scored the second goal. And it was literally like you got the balloon and you stuck a pin in it. It was the proverbial they just killed it. Because it was a wonderful goal. Akintola to Coyle. Coyle stood it up. And as you say, Benji, the header from Regan was, I thought Regan was absolutely fantastic on Saturday. And to back up a brilliant performance against Sheffield United. But if there's one way you're going to kind of diffuse that situation in some respects, and you're going to take the moral high ground of all of that, is go and get a second goal. And that's exactly what they did. And second half, they rode their luck at times. Birmingham created some chances. City had so many chances on the counter-attack. Then they scored the third goal. Brilliant footwork from Miller and a wonderful finish from Joff. They should have put it to bed 30 minutes before that. and then obviously you then get the penalty at the other end that gives you another heart attack. But I just love the way that they were like, yeah, whatever, you crack on, you argue amongst yourselves, we're going to score a second goal, and I love that, Prutts.
They and that sense of joy that comes from the way that they flood forward. I'm absolutely with you, Burnsy. That it's a delightful ball by Louis. That late run into the box, and the header's fantastic. It's unsavable given where it was put. There's a couple of good headers across the weekend, which we saw. I mean, Maguire's yesterday was pretty special as well. But the way that it was finished, as you say, Baz, at such a pertinent time. I mean, they hit the post after that, if I remember rightly. And then the third goal, where you've got, I think, at least 5 City players flooding forward to really kind of emphatically put the game to bed, shows a belief in what they've got going forward. Ollie's ball in the build-up for the first goal, a thing of beauty, Messi-esque, if you like. He barely breaks stride and lays it off with the outside of his right foot. And you talk about riding your luck and not necessarily dominating the game. Not many teams are going to go to St Andrews and dominate the game. Not many at all. And I think given not only what Birmingham City are right now, which is still, I'd say, finding their footing and the rhythm in the Championship, given the expectation levels, but they've had to adjust. Just as you look at a side that fell out of the Premier League, like a Southampton. We spoke to Will Still at the weekend that they've got to get their heads around expectation in a positive way, that they are now a big fish in a slightly smaller pond. Birmingham City have got to get used to not being able to just trample all over teams like they did for the majority of the time in League One. With respect to League One, they spent a lot of money. They gave that league short shrift, which is what the money was there for, and the recruitment was there for, and the manager was there for. And it's just shown how ultra competitive the Championship is. And also, without wanting to kind of tempt any fate with regards to City, how good a squad has been put together under a manager that clearly so far understands what the remit of the Championship is, which is staying in games, being defensively resolute, which they've got their heads around more in the last few weeks, allied to that wonderful attacking intent. I mean, Gelhardt's finish was fantastic. Really waits for that split second. And I mean, it almost brushes the near post as it goes in. It's that perfectly placed. So, yeah, again, so much to like. And from what you gather and what you've seen from City so far, in the second half of last season, you were on the edge of your seat because you were utterly terrified, weren't you? Now you're on the edge of the seat because you're utterly transfixed. And it's a great turnaround in what I presume is City fans' match day experiences at the moment.
Burnsy, that's the thing. We're privileged enough to get to go to the games home and away, and then write about it or talk about it. And you know, we've said this in the media suite and stuff. And as you chat. And last season there was it was terrifying for us. You were going to games, you weren't looking for, you know, in the context of the job you do, you're not looking forward to the games because of the way the City were playing, of how perilous it was. You obviously still look forward to going to games because you're privileged to be in the industry that you are. But City was so bad, and goals were so hard to come by, and there was a genuine fear of relegation, and so that created that anxiety, that stress that all the supporters felt as well, whether it be home or away. Yeah, there was some brilliant wins in there, but they were few and far between. Whereas now we're going like you're buzzing for every game. Pretty much every game is enthralling. Even at Bristol City, they lost 4-2, and there was 49 attempts on goal, of which 29 were on their goal, 28 funnily enough at Birmingham. But you know, they were always in the game for the most part, and you always feel that they've got something with players like McBurney, who you just love to pieces, and Carl Joseph, who fights, and you know, Regan back in midfield. Louis come in and done really well, but it looks like he'll be out against Leicester. We'll come to that in a minute. You know, Egan, Hughes, Crooks. Crooks was sensational when he came on the second half. Fantastic to see Liam Miller darting down the left-hand side. There were so many other players, and there's a lot of fans said last season there wasn't a likability to the group. It was they were distant with the supporters, and perhaps that was down to the manager in the early part of the season. But it's a very different feel, and with everything that's gone on over the summer, for the manager to have created that dressing room, the players to have harnessed it as well, and now the supporters, they're winning games of football. You know, they've won 4 games of football. You know, they're a couple of points outside. They could go into the top 6 if they beat Leicester on Tuesday night. You know, they'd go above Leicester. You know, it's not perfect. They concede too many goals. They are a bit open, but because of that, they're so thrilling to watch, and there's so many things to admire about them. I just like it. It's just it's enjoyable, Burnsy, isn't it? It's enjoyable to go and watch them play, and you don't know what you're going to get. And they could lose 3-0 tomorrow, but they could equally win 3-0 tomorrow, and then they could lose on Saturday, but they could win on Saturday. It's that inherent jeopardy that we love about football at its purest, that we just don't know what's going to happen, and that is the beauty with this team now.
Enjoyable is the word I've been overusing this season. I've really enjoyed watching them play because they're entertaining. There's something about them as the side, and they've all sorts of potential in this division, and that's what that win on Saturday tells me. I'd go back to it being a big statement win. Matty H to the 1904 club says City were superb on Saturday, could have and maybe should have scored 5. The players have a great mentality, grinding out results, and that'll be huge for us this season. The fact we can even talk about the playoffs after last year is a great feeling. Just one from me, because I've not counted it, but there seems a spread of goals amongst players. Slater gets his first goal in a year. Everybody's chipping in with a goal contribution. Not everybody yet. You maybe want to see the centre halves get there, though Egan, in fairness, scored at Swansea. So, I mean, that's good. People are getting in positions from whichever position they play and scoring goals. Just on Coyle, how long's he out for, Baz? What do you know?
We don't know. From what I understand, he's having a scan on Monday night. So we are with... we've got a press conference. If you listen to this on Monday, we've got a press conference Monday afternoon. It is with Dean Holden, and for those that think that's cynical, that's a cynical move. It really isn't. It was. We were told, I think, last Thursday that Dean would be doing this game, and I think the manager just wants to try and freshen it up, particularly when there's 3 games in a week, and he's doing, you know, pre-match and post-match before and after every game. When there's 3 games in a week, he wants to just a different voice. We've had Dean. Dean's brilliant. He's great to talk to. We've had him already for a midweek. So there's nothing untoward there before people start jumping to conclusions. It was pre-planned before the game against Birmingham. So, but from what I gather, Louis won't be involved against Leicester, and he's due a scan on Monday night. So fingers crossed. It's an ankle problem. He picked up in the first half, had some treatment at half time, couldn't carry on in the second half. So Cody Drame, and as Prutts said there, Drame came on, did really well, and hit the crossbar. Should have scored, actually. So he's an able deputy. Prutts, in terms of the Championship, we've said this before this season, that it feels, I wouldn't say average, but it doesn't feel like you've got a runaway leader. The last time Leicester came here, they were 2 seasons ago at the end, and we drew 2-2. They were runaway leaders. Ipswich were miles clear. Last season, teams were miles clear quite early on. That, you know, you look at Ipswich the other night; they were really poor at Middlesbrough and were deservedly beaten. Away from home, they're terrible. At home, they're very good. It feels like, you know, Leicester have one win in 5, I think. Lots of draws. This is what's giving City fans hope that if key players like McBurney can stay fit, they might have half a chance.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking at a whole City side that's above, as you say, Ipswich, it's above Watford, it's above Southampton, Birmingham and Wrexham obviously were talked up before the season started. You've got Norwich in there as well, and Sheffield United in the bottom 3. Then, yeah, I can absolutely see why. Coventry, seemingly unstoppable going forward. Borough found a way to get past Ipswich. As you say, Ipswich not really good on the road at this moment in time. And then some more familiar faces in Leicester and West Brom. But I thought Millwall at the weekend, effective against a QPR side that was unbeaten, I think, in 6. So it does go to show there is a very pleasing, as a neutral element of if not this year, why not? And how would you stop yourself doing that? We've knocked off 2 international breaks. City have got progressively better. The squad's looking progressively stronger with obviously take out injuries that need to be managed. But there's a coherence to them, and I think when you've got, as you say, with players going off and players coming back on, really proving a point. Even if you look at the Sheffield United game where Jurkovic made changes in the Preston game a couple of days before, stuck to those changes. There was an early injury for Lundstrom. There's a change there. It's a positive change in the end. So it seems to me that it's quite a group in harmony, and a group that's working hard and knows what it's good at, which I think is obviously, as we've shown and talked about, getting forward, but knows it's got stuff to work on with regards to at the back. Going back to the game on Saturday, the penalty that was eventually awarded for Birmingham City might look a bit soft, but you've got two central defenders there not playing the man. They've both boxed off Lyndon Dykes, and it's more often than not foul. Bit, like I said, a bit soft, but where you run the risk as defenders not going to challenge for the first ball and looking to play the man instead. That's what drew the attention of the referee. Again, maybe there's elements of that of the officials as a whole and how good they were, but you're still leaving that element of jeopardy, which is great when the game is won 3-2. If it's still 2-1 there and you give a soft penalty away and you come away with a point off the back of a thrilling game where you had chances to win, you'd be kicking yourselves. But it didn't. It becomes a hypothetical point. But yeah, again, something to learn from. Yeah,
I mean, look, if we're being brutally honest, I think everybody associated with Hull City would want the Hughes Anderson challenge in the first half. If that's the other way around, you're bellowing for a penalty. And Charlie needs to be smarter about that.
Very much so.
Absolutely does. So that's something I'm sure they'll work on. There was two moments in the game I just found fascinating. There was one in the first half. City were under the pump a bit. The ball's been tossed up towards halfway, and McBurney's got no right to win the ball. And he grapples with their skipper. He grapples, he fights. He battles with him all pretty much from halfway all the way to the edge of their box on the left-hand side touchline. And he wins. He gets inside a corner. And if forget McBurney's goals, his assists, or, he's involved in everything. That for me just typified McBurney's attitude and Hull City's attitude of, that's a lost cause. Really, what should have happened there? The centre half takes it down, rolls it back to the goalkeeper. Birmingham launch it up and go back and create another attack. Out of nothing, McBurney, his heart has got his side up the pitch, away from danger, and got a corner. Then even in the 97th minute, they've just conceded the second goal, the 3-2. Liam Miller's bombing down the left-hand side. Does he go to the corner flag? Does he ask? He cuts inside and he pings it over the bar. And you could say that's naive, that's silly. He should go to, you've got to, it's game management, you've got to be cleverer. But the point I'm trying to make is that's the positivity of this team, that we're going to fight for lost causes. We're going to try and get everything we can, every last minutiae out of this game to go our way. And even 97 minutes on the clock, with 3-2 up away from home, we could still lose this game or draw this game, but we're going to go and try and get a fourth goal. I mean, James Beadle their goalkeeper headed over.
Oh, what a chance that was.
That game, it was just a game that, Crooksy should have been sent off. We got away with one. Robbo got sent off for his mouth. It was just, I know we need to box off the game, but as Burnsy said at the top, the game was just, it's one of them where it's easy because we've come away with 3 points and you're buzzing, but it just had everything. It was one of those, if ever you needed to advertise the championship, you just you'd pick out the highlights of that game in a 3-minute package and go, watch that. That's the championship. That's English football at its very, very best. Dodgy refereeing decisions, some great goals, some crazy decisions from players, just absolutely everything. Great atmosphere. City fans away, sold out away following. Absolutely brilliant. I just love it. I just absolutely loved it. Burnsy, what were you going to say?
Just McBurney's like, it must be like marking McBurney's marking an octopus with sharp elbows. He's I'm not saying he's elbowing
and a beard,
players, but you know what I mean. He's all arms and legs, and he's got more than 2 arms, 2 legs. He just looks like an octopus. He's trying to grapple with him. It's very funny. He's been really effective. Tony Silver says, tell Baz his car park monologues mean a lot to those that matter. So there you go. Are you reporting on the NCP or anything, Baz? What is it? ACPO car parks. Can you get me off the parking fines I get for not displaying my ticket properly or anything like that? No, this is Baz doing his stuff after the game. Sometimes Tony obviously feels you're doing it from a car park, but anyway, we'll move on. I
thought you were going to mention Dublin.
Yeah. Lay by flashing his lights.
No, stop.
Only when the clocks go back.
Rich Lutkin says, fantastic win versus NFL FC. Was never really in doubt. our team's underestimating us. Also, does Miller start on Tuesday? He must have a chance, Baz.
Yeah, I thought it's tough to pick out anybody given how hard they all worked, and he was involved. He had a little tiny involvement in the second goal, but I thought Akintola struggled. I thought he struggled defensively. He couldn't really keep the ball. He got booked he should have had a foul, in fairness, but he got frustrated, got himself booked, and away from home in that bear pit it was in that first half, they could ill afford the players getting needless yellow cards, because it always felt a game that was combustible, that it was going to blow up, that there was going to be a sending off at some point, and luckily it didn't go our way. But yeah, I thought Akintola really struggled. So I think maybe Liam comes in, does he? He's had a couple of cameos for City off the bench now. He played, he had a couple of appearances off the bench for Canada in the eye break. Another useful 20-25 minutes on Saturday. So I think he's getting there. They just want to be really careful with him, don't they? Because obviously we saw what happened with Mo Balumi, and he had 6-7 cameos, and you're thinking, right, give him a start, and then you give him a start, and after 15 minutes his hammy goes. So I think that they're really careful. And also it's the impact off the bench when you're chasing a game or the game's nip and tuck. You can throw Liam on. He's fresh. He's quick. He's fleet-footed, like we saw with the goal. So it's a really difficult one. Mo's not going to be back until after the next break. Obviously, Lundstrom's out, we think, until the next break. Casey Palmer's now out probably maybe to the new year. He's 8 to 10 weeks with that MCL knee injury. So they've got to be really. They can ill afford another injury to an influential player. So I still think they've got to be careful. It wouldn't surprise me if they went like for like. Joe Ndala's obviously back. He was on the bench, didn't get off it on Saturday. Maybe Ndala comes in for Akintola. I just think against Leicester, he might need to be a bit more pragmatic, possibly. But I don't think Miller's too far away. He's doing everything. I thought he was exceptional when he came on. Made a couple of poor decisions in terms of his shot. He should have hit the target. But then, that third goal, he was brilliant. That set up the weight, the pass into Geoff.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I think he's getting there, Burnsy. What would you be doing?
Well, it's down to his fitness. They know the data, and they don't want to risk him. Akintola probably didn't do enough. I know he was involved in the first goal. Didn't do enough to keep his place. Whether you can get Ndala in there, whether he's ready to start, I don't know. He's got a few options. Just going back on the injuries, the other thing they're going to have to watch out for is suspensions. The yellow cards seem to be racking up. Is anybody on 4 bookings now? Or are they all right? While you're pondering that, Baz,
I've not checked it since. Go on. Have we lost Burnsy?
David Catherine's dad says, Catherine. No, I'm here. You got me?
Yeah, go on.
David. It's going well, this. Catherine's dad's Catherine couldn't be with us today. Should Stansfield have got a red for his challenge, which started the melee? And Akintola wasn't at his best. Is Miller ready to start? We've sort of addressed that. And Craig Bell says, great win on Saturday. I'd start Crooks in midfield tomorrow night and Gelhardt on the wing, as I reckon Leicester will more than likely look to dominate possession and will hopefully hit them in transition. Maybe a first start for Miller, says Craig Bell.
Just on the bookings, Akintola, Lundstrom, Crooks, McBurney, Slater all on 3 in the Championship. Then you're down to Destan, Pandor, Egan, Coyle, Giles on 2. So that's where Akintola popped up on 3 there. So that's where we are at the minute. So no immediate threat, but obviously you wouldn't back against that changing in the next couple of weeks, certainly before the next international break. So yeah, blow for Casey Palmer, obviously getting injured, coming back from Jamaican duty. No further update on the situation with him and what happened before the international break. But obviously he looks like he's now out for a period of time. Just in terms of Leicester then, before we finish, Leicester, I guess a draw at home to Portsmouth is not what their fans would have wanted. Martin Cifuentes still feeling his way into it. I mean, they're on 17 points. They're in the thick of the top 6. 1 win in 5. They've not really hit their straps yet. Scored 14, conceded 9. So
yeah,
What's your thoughts?
It's good. I mean, they're a good team. A good squad. Perhaps not necessarily operating at their absolute fullest. Fatau can win any game of football. Mongo, I've got a lot of time for. He's an incredible player for such a young kid. And they've got real experience. If you look at that back line, about Faz, Vestergaard, Ricardo Pereira, Thomas, they've got so much that you would presume to be fearful about. But I think given how City find themselves at the moment, they should be very, very confident going into this game. The expectation is on Leicester. It is by virtue of them dropping out and doing what they did the last time they're in the Championship. So I don't think City can look at this as a free hit. They can go into it very, very confident. Attack like they did against Birmingham City. As I said, keep an eye on the back door because you've got players. Leicester City have got players that can really decide a football match pretty comprehensively. Hopefully, if from a City point of view, it's another step in the right direction, given what they managed to do at Birmingham City. And now the expectation comes against the Leicester side that, what was it, 1 win in 5, did you say, Baz? But still sat in the playoff places, which is where City want to at least find themselves, given what they've done so far this season. So, as I said, they've got experience, they've got quality. But I think, given the fact I've just said that, in my head, I'm thinking you could class Hull City, given what they're doing at this moment in time, that have got experience and they've got quality. So I think Leicester will be very wary of what City can do to them.
And Burnsy, given the fact that they've just won two on the spin for the first time in forever, and now they've got 2 home games back to back, obviously Leicester on Tuesday night and then Charlton Athletic, who are doing really well, actually, on Saturday. This is a big week for them, isn't it? What this looks like come 5 o'clock on Saturday, will be fascinating to see, won't it?
I mean, it's a great opportunity with 2 games. And Jack asks us on the 1904 Club, 10 games in, where do you think, or you all think City will finish in the league this year? Well, looking at the way it's coming together and those 2 back-to-back wins and the first away win, they're playing with confidence, come back to the robustness. I mean, I don't normally go this early. It's just after 10 games. But from what you see at the moment, and given the open nature of the division, they're perfectly capable of making top 6. Perfectly capable. That might come back and bite me on the backside if Leicester come and play to their potential tomorrow. But
I think you've got to make the call right now. You've got to make that's what it always makes me laugh when these debates or discussions are put, because I was chatting to someone with links to Coventry talking about, can they finish top of the league? Can they get promoted automatically? And you sat there going, well, the top of the league are the top scorers. Quite obviously, if they keep doing this, then they'll get promoted. So you've got to make the judgment right now. If City keep playing like they are the last 2 games, they've got more than a good enough chance to be able to get within the top 6 chat. The same with Millwall. If Leicester turn a corner, the same with them. If Stoke City maintain what they've done, they'll be in the top 6. If Borough do what they've done, they'll be in the top 2/top 6. So I understand. I get, maybe that's just a general thought, Burnsy, on that kind of, given what football media is and those kind of gotcha moments. It's like, well, no, you've asked me a question right now about Hull City. Yes, if McBurney plays like he does, carries on like he does. If Liam Miller develops back into the play off the back of a long injury that we know he can do. If Crooksy plays like he can, yeah, absolutely. But the dynamics of football and the unknowns of football means that potentially that might not happen as well. But God forbid you'd say yes.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, look, they're sitting in 10th, which I think if you'd have offered any City fan after 10 games, you're going to be 10th, you're going to be the second highest top scorers in the league, they'd have laughed at you, given what happened last year in the summer they had. I think if you were 10th at the turn of the year, you'd be going, we're in with a shout at the top 6 here, because any team down to, usually in March, any team down to 15th or 16th have still got a shot at the top 6 if they go on a decent run. So and I know it's ifs and buts, but if they beat Leicester, based on the other results, they'll be in the top 6 or on only out of it on goal difference or something like that. So if they carry on, we've said it before. We said it after the Southampton game, and by the way, they trounced Southampton, a relegated team. Leicester, like Southampton, were relegated because they weren't very good. So they've got a fair chance. They beat Sheffield United, who were relegated the year before and were within and that's of getting promoted back into the Premier League and got 92 points, whatever it was. So they've shown they can beat the top teams in this league already. But it's just about consistency, and that's what we wanted to see after Sheffield United. Could they, after the international break, go and back it up? They've had opportunities before and they haven't. Could they go and back up a win? Well, they've gone and backed up a win away from home at a team that hadn't been beaten in more than a year. So, yes, okay, half of that was, well, 3/4 of that was in League One, but you've still got to do it. And they've overcome some, a bit of luck here and a trial and tribulation, but they've won a game away from home. So give them some credit. Now, they've got to carry it on. They've got a string of results. They might lose on Tuesday night. That suddenly doesn't mean that Hull City are not capable of getting in the top 6 if they lose against Leicester. But they might beat Leicester and lose to Charlton. But they've just got to string 3 or 4 wins in the next 6-7 games. And they're 3 games unbeaten. Let's not forget the comeback against Preston as well. They've got an opportunity, but they've got to be consistent. They've got to tighten up, and they've got to keep their key players fit. But everybody else in the league is saying the same thing. And they will be looking at City going, hang on a minute, they've scored 17 goals. Yes, we can get at them, but they can score. They will score. So they're a threat. They're a real threat in this division, and they're a bit unknown.
Just because we'd like to mention people that get in touch with us. Benedict says to the 1904 club, notice Slater said it wasn't the greatest footballing performance we'll ever see. And Sergei Yakirovich also referenced a lack of control at times in his presser. Can see where they're coming from, but still encouraged by many passages of play, mainly the second half on the break. Benedict, thank you very much for your message.
Just quickly on Regan, we spoke to him post-match, and I put it up as a bonus episode of the pod just because it was really good to talk to. And he was like, yeah, we didn't play great. We need to be better first half, but we've come away from home. We've won the game. Happy days. He was buzzing with his first goal since last September. And he was really, really glowing of the dressing room of the influence of Ollie Mack, as he calls him. And Prutts, that is the key, isn't it? Teams that are successful at any level, it's not about individuals. I know we talk a lot about McBurney. It's about the collective, the cliche, but it is about the spirit that is fostered between the manager and the staff, importantly as well, and the players.
Yeah, I mean, it feels not in direct contrast, but it's a world away from the callow nature of what City were last season, isn't it? As you say, with that key word that Burnsy used, which is robustness. There's an edge to them, I think. There's a bit of bite about them. I'm not saying that means you go around lifting people and becoming a team that's synonymous with fouling or anything like that. But I just think there's a real bite to them, which you can't have levelled over the last couple of seasons at City, even when they were flirting with the top 6 under Liam. It wasn't necessarily a nasty team, and that's not to say that would have taken them into the playoffs. And last season, as we saw, very timid in a lot of aspects and hung on by the skin of the teeth, more by luck rather than design, I'd have to say. But this season, they just look a different entity. They are filled with experience and a real sense of honesty about where they find themselves. As you say, with Regan talking about they need to be better. Yeah, and it's great that you hear that. The kind of slightly further down the line and longer in the tooth kind of looks at it and goes, sod that, we won. It was a great game. But then that's why I'm not in that side of football, which is about relentlessly making things better. So I think it's a great take on it off the back of what it was a very good win. And to kind of circle it back to what we started talking about, the melee, the coming together, there's a lot not to like about it. Again, that's probably due to the fact that for the last 10 years, I've spent a lot of time watching games, and you get told that you can't glorify things like that, pitch invasions, you can't glorify players coming together and looking out of control. But there is that primal side of what football is, which is an us against them. The us at the weekend, the Hull City us was against the collective them of Birmingham City, and both teams stood up loud and proud, you know what I mean? And to a man, backed teammates and backed colleagues and backed friends of Birmingham City saying, you're not coming to our house and kicking lumps out of us, and Hull City saying, we're going to come to your house and do what we see fit. So, that kind of the nature of what a lot of what the game was on Saturday is absolutely why everyone loves the game for what it is.
Just quickly as well, just a nod to Charlton because they've had a great start to the season. They've the place above City in the table at the start of the week. They've got Ipswich away on Tuesday night. Prutts, that looks a tricky one for them away at Ipswich. But Charlton at home for City, again, as much as everybody will put Leicester City favourites on Tuesday night at the MKM, the ball will flip round, won't it, on Saturday, and that will be whatever happens against Leicester. City will be expected to go out and perform, and that's an interesting one because that changes the landscape slightly when there's pressure on you and there's an increased expectation.
Yeah, there's a lot. Again, given what I've seen from Charlton, we know what Nathan's like: ultra competitive, ultra focused. He'll have his players terracing around the pitch to play at a very high tempo. There's obviously the familiar face of Doc being involved in a lot of the very, very good stuff for Hull City. Going forward with Kelman and Campbell, they've got a real threat. So there's a lot to be wary of, and it's a slightly different expectation with Charlton. I know that Nathan, and I'm not betraying any trust here, but I get the feeling that he's a man in a hurry with Charlton in a hurry. They've spent a lot of time away from the very top table, and the teams that they would have seen leapfrog them over the past decade or so to get up into the Premier League would have really kind of stuck in Charlton's craw. So there'll be a lot of expectation inside the club of them being at least in the top half, if not the top six, coming into the season. And City will see that firsthand when they rock up, and it'll be another thing to deal with. And given potentially where the midweek fixture goes, you might even be looking at a City side going into that as favourites, where they've then got to live up to expectations of City fans going, well, we've seen you do it to Birmingham, we've seen you do it to Sheffield United, we've seen you do it to other teams over the course of the season, now do it to Charlton.
Burnsy, on Charlton, it's great to see, isn't it? Because obviously Birmingham and Wrexham went up with all the focus, all the bells and whistles, everybody in the world talking about them too. Nobody talked about Charlton, a fantastic football club. And as Prutts rightly mentioned, skippered brilliantly by Greg Doherty. They've just kind of gone quietly about their business as quietly as they can with Nathan Jones as manager, and they're now, doing really, really well, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, and credit to them, and they may be the trickier game of the two home games.
Good shout.
The championship. And why can't City be favourites? I know Leicester favourites with the bookies, but why can't City be favourites given recent results and what have you? Tomorrow night we'll wait and see. Jordan Garnett says to us on the 1904 Club, great result at the weekend. Do you think Serge has got the team playing at the moment the way Adjan had hoped previous managers would have done? I'll say a quick yes on that. I'm sure the owner's enjoying what he's seen from his manager.
He definitely is. Yeah, he's a very, very happy man at the minute. So yeah, right. That's all we've got time for on this episode of the 1904 Club. Catherine, hopefully she'll be back next week, and hopefully will have enjoyed her well-earned holiday. Fletch, we wish him well. Hopefully he's busy at work today. I know he is. Bless him. And Prutts, thanks as always. Burnsy, thanks as always.
Pleasure.
And yeah, we'll see what happens against Leicester City on Tuesday. As always, everybody, thank you so much for getting in touch, sending us your comments, your thoughts, etc. We read them all, and we will be back again soon. Up those Tigers.